Coming up today, Korea is being buffered by strong winds and heavy rain as it feels the indirect force of Typhoon Lion-rock. The massive storm made landfall in Japan last night. Hanjin Shipping's board votes to file for court receivership. It comes a day after its creditors cut financial support and takes the nation's biggest shipping firm one step closer to liquidation. Plus, South Korea says international sanctions on North Korea's leadership are starting to bite, but the situation needs to be closely monitored to ensure the pressure stays on. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Wednesday, the 31st of August. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us today. I'm Mark Broom. We are going to start with a sudden turn in the weather. Most of Korea is feeling the blustery influence of Typhoon Lion-rock that made landfall in Japan last night. Special strong wind advisories are in place across the country, but the nation's east coast is being hit the hardest. Park Jong-hong starts us off.
Korea's east coast has been under a storm and tidal wave watch for 2 days now. Coastal areas in Gangwon-do province are being battered by waves of up to 4 meters high. On Wednesday morning, a strong wind watch was additionally issued for 13 other locations. Weather experts say a low-pressure front will combine with the ebbing tides in the afternoon, and that's when the biggest damage may occur. Tides are forecast to settle down from Thursday evening. Damage has been minimal so far, with an 80-meter stretch of road and a fence spanning 50 meters collapsing from the impact of the waves. The ferry service between Gangwon-do province and Ulung Island has been suspended since Sunday, and more than 2,600 fishing vessels have taken shelter, rendered idle. Weather experts advise people to take extra precautions against accidents and flooding during the unsettled weather. Other parts of Korea are also feeling the influence of Typhoon Lion-rock that made landfall in Japan late Tuesday. Korea's central region, including Seoul, can expect gusty winds and up to 50 millimeters of rain on Wednesday. The afternoon high in Seoul is going to top out at just 19 degrees Celsius. That's 5 degrees cooler than Tuesday's high. Park Jong-hong, Arirang News.
Now we're going to stay with the weather, and Korea's Ministry of Public Safety and Security has shifted onto emergency mode in response to the strong winds and rain hitting the country. The ministry says a low-pressure system over the East Sea has seen more than 350 millimeters of rainfall on Ulleung-do Island on Tuesday alone, causing a drainage tunnel to collapse there. Some coastal roads in Gangneung and Gosong County in Gangwon-do province have also been closed after they were submerged under high waves, as you can see in the video there. The ministry says it's working closely with local authorities to prepare against potential floods and landslides. Anti-flood pumps will be dispatched to areas prone to or with a history of flooding or landslides. Now, in other news, the board of Hanjin Shipping has voted to file for court receivership in a last-gasp effort to save the company from liquidation. With fears over the possible ripple effects, Korea's financial authorities called an emergency meeting Wednesday to discuss how to limit the fallout from the shipper's rapid fall from grace. Hwang Ho-jun with the details.
A desperate measure for the sinking shipping company, once the world's 7th biggest by capacity. Hanjin Shipping's board of directors convened Wednesday morning, Korea time, to decide on a future course, and 6 out of 7 members decided to file for court receivership. The actual filing is expected to be made Wednesday afternoon. All tradings in shares of Hanjin Shipping has been halted after its stock price plummeted as much as 29.1%, eventually closing at just 1,240 Korean won, or a little over $1. Court receivership will give the court with full control and authority to make decisions for the company. The court will replace the current executive with a new legal administrator and will make a judgment as to whether or not Hanjin has a chance for survival. If Hanjin is deemed fit to survive, the court will start restructuring the company, potentially liquidate some assets, and manage its obligations as necessary to bring the company into a process of recovery. The court will also continue to closely monitor the company's debt repayment. If Hanjin follows through on all steps, then it graduates from receivership. On the other hand, if the court determines that its operations cannot be salvaged through restructuring, liquidation may be in order. Regarding the situation, Korea's Financial Services Commission led an emergency meeting about an hour before Hanjin announced its fateful decision. In a statement, FSC officials said they believe the filing's effect on domestic financial markets will be limited. According to its mid-year report on June 30th, Hanjin had total debts of about $5.5 billion, while this week its market value tumbled to about $270 million. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
Now, in domestic politics, Korea's rival parties are still locking horns over the approval of a nearly $10 billion budget supplement aimed at boosting the local economy. Lawmakers on the National Assembly's Special Committee on Budget and Accounts have been holding negotiations since this morning, but have failed to narrow their differences. The parties had originally agreed to approve the extra funds on Tuesday. Now, the main opposition Minju Party of Korea wants to provide assistance to local education offices burdened with high childcare costs and give extra support to South Korean firms shut out of the suspended Inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex. However, the ruling Saenuri Party says it will not yield from what the rival parties already agreed upon last week. It warned that if the Minju Party continues to hold up passage of the bill, it could take measures to revoke other bipartisan agreements. South Korea's unification minister says the international sanctions on North Korea are proving effective. It's mainly the regime's leadership, he says, and not ordinary North Koreans who are feeling the pinch. Oh Jung-hee has the details.
International sanctions on North Korea are working effectively, according to the South Korean government. Unification Minister Hong Yong-pyo said Tuesday in an interview with Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency that the North Korean leadership, including leader Kim Jong-un, have less access to funds than they used to and are therefore feeling the pressure. Minister Hong said it's important to closely observe the effects international sanctions have on the North Korean regime's governing fund. Contrary to what the regime's been telling the international community, that the sanctions are severely hurting its citizens, the minister said, in fact, it's the leadership's money that's affected. He added that the continued defections of North Koreans working abroad have also increased the financial pressure as the communist regime loses access to the money they used to send home. The unification minister urged North Korea to denuclearize and join the international community as its nuclear development will only lead to further isolation. Staying in Almaty for an international denuclearization forum, he cited Kazakhstan as a good example for North Korea to follow, noting that after it chose to denuclearize, Kazakhstan achieved economic development with the support of the international community. Regarding the new centers for monitoring human rights in the north set to open in South Korea under a new law, the minister said their work will help expand the international consensus and send a message to the north on its abysmal human rights record. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Now, as a follow-up to that report, the United States is turning the screw on North Korea for its provocations and human rights abuses. The U.S. State Department this week submitted a report to Congress aimed at promoting initiatives to enhance international awareness of and address the dire human rights situation in the North. The report details 23 countries that are said to host North Korean laborers forced to work to earn hard currency for the regime's nuclear and missile programs. The list includes countries like China, Russia, Singapore, and Thailand. Experts say the list, which is the most comprehensive ever produced, could put pressure on those countries to end such practices at a time of growing provocations out of North Korea. Just last month, in fact, the US imposed its first ever sanctions on North Korean leader Kim Jong-un for his role in the country's human rights violations. 30 years of bilateral ties between North Korea and Ukraine seem to be nearing an end, with the expiration this October of a non-governmental exchange pact between the two. Diplomatic sources said on Tuesday that means North Korean visitors to Ukraine will no longer be able to enjoy the benefits of the bilateral agreement, which include a visa waiver provision. The agreement, signed in the 1980s, was initially aimed at increasing civic-level exchanges between the two countries, but Ukraine decided to renounce the pact late last month, displeased with North Korea supporting Russia's annexation of Crimea. Ukraine was North Korea's fifth largest trading partner as of last year, followed by China, Russia, India and Thailand. Now, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un seems to be trying to tighten his grip on power. Officials in Seoul have confirmed that a senior member of the regime has been executed and another senior official has been sent for so-called re-education. A unification ministry official said on Wednesday that North Korea's Vice Premier Kim Yong-jin was shot to death sometime last month for anti-party and anti-revolutionary crimes. The 63-year-old pictured there had been investigated by the regime's State Security Department after being caught dozing off during the Supreme People's Assembly back in June. It's also been confirmed that Kim Yong-chol, head of the North's United Front Department, which handles inter-Korean affairs, was sent for a month of re-education on a rural farm for trying to expand his department's role. Now, on the domestic economic front, South Korea's industrial output dropped slightly in July from a month earlier. The modest decline came on the back of sluggish retail sales, due largely to the government's decision to wind up a tax break on cars. Hwang Jie has the details.
Korea's output across all industries ended 2 straight months of growth last month, edging down 0.1% from the previous month. While output in the mining and manufacturing sectors was up around 1.5% on month, sluggish output in the services sector pulled down the country's overall output. Production in the service sector dropped 0.7% in July from a month earlier due to the sweltering heat that withered outdoor activities, on top of other factors like a drop in stock market transactions. Retail sales dropped more than 2.5% as the government's temporary tax breaks on cars expired at the end of June. In fact, sales of durable goods that include automobiles plunged nearly 10% last month. So, as the government policy to boost growth by revving up spending loses steam, overall output is taking a hit. The finance ministry says downside risks further threaten the feeble recovery momentum as uncertainties linger about a possible U.S. rate hike and the government's corporate restructuring drive. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Now, Korean companies don't have a particularly bright outlook for the economy for September. According to the Federation of Korean Industries, the business survey index of the nation's top 600 firms came to 95 for next month. After hitting 102.3 in May, the figure has been below the 100 mark for 4 straight months now. A reading below 100 means pessimists outnumber optimists. But the figure for next month does mark an uptick from August. Officials attribute that in part to the upcoming 3-day-long Chuseok, or Korea's traditional Thanksgiving holiday. The Federation of Korean Industries says the figure failed to top the 100 mark due to a prolonged economic slump. EU antitrust regulators have ordered Apple to pay back the Irish government up to $14.5 billion in taxes. The largest tax penalty in European history has prompted rebukes from Apple, along with the Irish and US governments. Kim Hae-sung reports.
The European Commission ordered Apple on Tuesday to pay nearly $15 billion in back taxes to Ireland, plus interest.
Apple's tax benefits in Ireland are illegal. 2 tax rulings granted by Ireland have artificially reduced Apple's tax burden for over 2 decades.
The Commission's 3-year investigation into favorable tax deals in the EU concluded that Apple had paid substantially less to the Irish government than other businesses. The standard rate of Irish corporate tax is 12.5%, but the Commission said Apple had effectively paid only 1% on its European profits in 2003 and about 0.005% in 2014. Both Apple and Ireland said they disagreed with the record penalty and would appeal against the ruling. In a letter published on its website, Apple said, quote, "The ruling will have a profound and harmful effect on investment and job creation in Europe." The European Commission's order also drew rebukes from the Obama administration, which said the move could undermine economic partnership between the U.S. and Europe.
We are concerned about a unilateral approach in state aid negotiations that threaten to undermine progress that we have made collaboratively with the Europeans to make the international taxation system fair.
Low corporate tax rates in Ireland, the lowest, in fact, among OECD member countries, have drawn hundreds of multinationals like Facebook and Google to Dublin. The landmark ruling is likely to affect not only the Irish economy, but also become a source of contention between the U.S. and Europe. Kim Yong-jin, Arirang News.
Now, the second in command in the Islamic State group is dead, according to a media arm of the terrorist organization. The circumstances of Abu Muhammed al-Adnani's death were not revealed, but he's believed to have been killed in Aleppo, which has been under heavy fire from multiple rebel groups, as well as Russian and American airstrikes. The 39-year-old Syrian national was the Islamic State's Director of External Operations and main spokesman. He was widely known for inciting lone wolf attacks on Westerners. He encouraged followers to do anything they could to kill non-believers. The US government, which had a $5 million reward on his head, has yet to comment on the reports. And that is where we are going to leave it on this Wednesday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for tuning in. And we'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next scheduled bulletin coming up at 3 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.